So for example, if programmer 1, they pass it the code to programmer 2. So here also the efficiency is a bit higher than the first one, but it is still not enough because all the programmers who are part of the project, they know exactly what is this requirement, they know exactly what the requirement should do, so how the code suppose should be work. So when they do the testing, they will exactly follow the right way of how the system suppose should work. So this can actually reduce the efficiency level of the testing because it might be biased. Okay. Then the third level is where the code or the system will be moved from development team to the testing team. So it means the testing team in the same organization, okay, will be appointed to do the testing of the code of the system. Okay, so the efficiency level is actually become a bit more because testing team did not involve in the development stage, so their understanding of the requirement or the code or the system flow might be different, so they able to detect more errors compared to the programming team or the program development team. Then the last one is totally hiring an independent tester, or we can say the individual uh, or any other organization which is totally out of the project. So it means the company is just there to conduct the testing, so we hire them. Okay, so this is considered as the highest independent level of the testing which we can conduct, and it can actually give us a better efficient testing and much more maybe accurate test result without any bias. Okay, so it means there is an individual or any other organization who will be appointed for them to do the testing. Okay, so they can able to identify more errors or more defects compared to the programming team, it means the development team, or the testing team sometimes. Okay, so let's see what can be the reason for us to select this independent testing team. Okay, so of course there is advantages and the disadvantages. Okay, so the advantages is we can have a reliable test report because how to say, like this team or this individual from the third party of the software testing, they actually will not have any understanding much, they don't know anything about the project requirement, the design, so they can actually give us a better test report or better test result, so we can be having a reliable test report. Then it can actually shorten turnaround time in testing. So if you see hiring an individual or an organization who is just there to do the testing, they can actually use all their time to conduct the testing instead of like how to say, like our own testing team, maybe they are busy with a few projects at the same time, so they need to really share their time to do the testing, multiple testing involved in the same period of time. So when we hire these independent testers, they actually able to focus more, and this can actually shorten the time of the testing. Okay, then the third one is the organization can have a latest and specialization in the tools, facilities, or any technology, the latest technology in conducting tests. So this can actually improve the productivity of the test cycle. Okay, and then the last one is the testing will be conducted based on the clear requirement without any assumption. because these people, they are not part of the project, so they have no idea about the system, the requirement, the client's needs. So they don't know anything, so their test will be much more clear, much more clean, without any bias or without any assumption by themselves. Okay, so this will be the advantages why it's good to hire independent testing team. Okay, and how this independent testing level can give us benefit. Okay, so at the same time there is some disadvantages. Okay, where the first one is of course the money. Okay, it's going to be cost high compared to use our own testers. Okay, because our own testers, they will not be uh, asking for money based on contract base or based on the hourly work. Okay, but when it comes to hiring independent testing team, it's going to be cost more because it will be based on the contract. Okay, then the second disadvantage is this team might need additional time or some difficulties to understand the test object because they are not part of the project, they are not part of any documentation, nothing. So for them to test a new test object, totally new thing, which is passed to them, so they need time for them to understand how the requirement work, how the system work, and so on. So this can actually use this time for understanding stage. But when it comes to execution, they can actually focus more on the execution. But before that, they will actually need more time to understand the test object. Okay, then um, for this independent tester, for not communicating with the development team can actually cause the communication gap because normally our own testing team, our own development team, somehow they will be actually communicating, okay, to each other for clearing some things and so on. But if we hired the totally outsiders testing team, so they might not able to communicate with the development team, so this can actually give negative impact to the software quality. Okay, then the last one is they don't care of the software quality because all they want is they just want to conduct the testing and done. What they focus is just the execution of the test cases is done or not, so they don't really bothered about the other quality areas of the software. So what you ask them to test, that's what they will do. So they don't bother much about if they identify any other issues in the software on any quality areas, so they don't really feel responsible of handling anything. Okay, so this can be the list of disadvantages and the list of advantages why independent testing team can be hired. Some companies, some clients, they prefer independent testing team totally. Okay, so we might need to follow what is our client's requirement, but some they actually don't go with the testing team, independent testing team, because they always use the internal testing team. So it's depend. Okay, then a different role in testing. So in our chapter 1 I have go through some of this role in the testing, so the same thing here. Okay, so each of these people or these roles actually can be part of the testing project. Okay, primary testers, secondary testers, okay, where they actually can be differentiated based on their maybe years of experience or maybe senior junior. Okay, but they will be more on to conducting the tests. Okay, and then subject matter expert, So this will be more to the knowledge or the domain expert. Okay, and then functional test analyst. So they also might have the analysis on the functional test. So there is a role who is doing that analysis. And then test leader or the test lead normally will be the one lead the testing team, okay, to communicate with the team members. And then if there is any issues to be communicating with the how to say, with the project manager or with the other people, relevant people. And then there will be a test manager. So the test manager will be the one managing the testing project. So it means they are the one doing the approval, the allocation of the resources, all these things. Okay, so these are the roles involved in testing, but it still depends with the companies how big is the testing team, okay, for them to have different roles. Okay, if it's a small company, then maybe one person can handle all in all, and if it's a big company, then they can have multiple roles to handle different responsibility. Okay, so under the first stage for the STLC, we will be discussing the requirement analysis. Wait on. Okay, so under the requirement analysis, which is the first stage in the software development lifecycle and also software testing lifecycle. So, as what I have mentioned, this requirement analysis will be more onto the preparation for the testing. So, the requirement, the finalized requirement or the reviewed requirement will be distributed to the development team and also to the testing team. So here for the testing team, they will do the analysis on the requirement to confirm if those requirements can be tested or not. Okay, so the requirement analysis will be based on the system analysis and control or the function analysis and the allocation, and then to do the design thesis synthesis, and then what output come from there. So this can be a loop where to do the requirement analysis and then for the design part. So here design referring to how we are going to design or plan for our testing. Okay, so under the requirement analysis, we will try to define the quality measure or quality measurement for the requirement. Okay, so we want to make sure that every single requirement, doesn't matter functional requirement or the non-functional requirement, able to be tested or not. So it is very important for us to consider the functional requirement and the non-functional requirement. So normally the testing team will have a checklist for them to have for them to use during the requirement analysis phase for them to verify the quality of the requirement. Okay, so the testing team will have a checklist. So based on this checklist, they will analyze the requirement to verify if the quality of the requirement is achieved or not. Okay, so under the quality measurement or the quality factors which we check during the requirement analysis will be the correctness, the completeness, the consistency, and then we have testability, and then feasibility, and then the last one is the traceability. Okay, so I think you are very familiar with all these term. Okay, what type of quality measurement normally we check under each of these attributes. So correctness, normally we want to make sure that the requirement is actually correct based on what the client want. based on what the standards say. Okay, because we want to do the planning for the testing, we have to make sure that we actually use the correct requirement without any issue. Okay, and then completeness, okay, where we want to ensure that there is no missing requirement happen. Okay, there will be because when we want to do the planning, we have to make sure that we have covered every requirement without any missing of requirement happen. Okay, then consistency, okay, where there is no contradiction happen between internal and external areas, or sometimes between different clients, like different levels. Okay, there is no contradiction happen. Then we have testability, so we need to verify that every requirement we able to test them. It means we able to create the test case. Okay, every requirement we able to create the test case, we able to conduct the test execution to prove that this requirement has been achieved. So it's very important for us to verify if there is any requirement which cannot be tested. So if we cannot test the requirement, it means we cannot prove to the client that this requirement has been included and this requirement is actually working. So it is very important to make sure that every requirement able to be tested. Okay. Then feasibility, so we have to make sure that every requirement able to be implemented within maybe the resources allocated for the testing phase. So for example, in the aspect of budget, schedule, any technologies or any facilities which we have allocated for testing purpose. So normally when we said we conduct the feasibility study, is actually for the entire development where the system able to be developed within this budget, within these resources and so on. So here when we said feasibility, it means we able to test this requirement within this budget, within this schedule and the technology in the company. Okay, so it's very important. Okay, then we have traceability. So traceability is where every requirement we able to trace them back. Okay, especially when we said how to say, when we have a requirement, I think it's supposed should be here. Okay, so when we have a requirement, okay, from each of the specification or each of the requirement, we will have the test case. So it means we need to make sure that we able to trace back, okay, this requirement one, where is the test case? Or when we are executing the test case, okay, this test case, which requirement? So we able to trace them back. And when we say traceability, not only between test case and the requirement, but also can be the result of the test case. So it means when we do the test case execution, we have the result and also the defect which we identify. So it means every requirement there is a test case, and every test case there is a pass fail result, and when it's failed it means the defect. And from the defect we actually can have other items related. So all these items must be able to trace. So that's why traceability is very important. Okay, so that we can ensure that each of these requirement, what is the related items, start from the test case, the test result, if there is defect, and then if there is any how to say, if there is any issues during the test execution, and then when we do the bug management or the tracking, and then we have the debugging process. So all this must be able to connect. So when there is a connection, then automatically we have to make sure that we able to trace them back whenever we need. So that's why traceability is another important quality factor during the requirement analysis. Okay, so we have these six: correctness, completeness, consistency, and then testability, feasibility, and traceability. So this should be the most important six quality factor which we need to check during our requirement analysis. Okay, so it is important to have a review team. Okay, so this is recalling back for our static test where we need to have a review team. Okay, where the review team will be able to conduct a proper review on the documentation. So normally we will have the owner of the requirement or the document. Okay, and then other than that, we will have the project manager, and then we have the reviewer, uh, and then we have the programmer, and then we have the tester. So when we are doing the requirement review for the development or for the testing, so of course we will be having the programmers and also the testers, so that during the analysis they can do the analysis based on their own perspective. So as a programmers for their development team, and when we said tester for their testing team, so for their development and for their preparation for the testing. Okay, so this will be generally who are the people involved for the requirement analysis. Okay, so we call them as a review team. Okay, so this one is like what we have discussed, where the document need to be reviewed earlier by the reviewer, and from there they come up with the comments. Okay, so that's about the first stage, which is the requirement analysis. Okay, so the second one is the test planning. So now when they do the requirement analysis, they identify all the requirement fulfilling the quality factors. Okay, there is no issues, then they actually proceed with the test planning. Okay, so test planning here is actually the activity which we do. Okay, so testing is not only activity in quality assurance but always combined with other assurance activities. So normally when we say test planning, it means how we want to ensure the testing which we will conduct later involve with all the quality assurance or any type of quality assurance activities needed. Okay, so test planning is actually more on the planning activity. Okay, test plan is actually the document which contain the overall planning what we have done. Okay, and then we follow with the test case, where from the test plan we identify the specific test step which we will conduct later. Okay, so during the test planning we actually do the planning on the entire test effort. Okay, effort here means more to human effort. Okay, where we will define all the individual test cases based on the test items. Okay, and then the testing team which will be execute the test. Okay, so during the test planning we will define the test scope, the procedures, the test strategy, all the resources required, and also the schedule. Resources here, it will be back to material resources, human resources, and also budget resources. Okay, so depend with the scale of the project. Okay, some project, when it come to a very big project to do the testing, then we might have a master plans and also different levels of planning document. Okay, but in a general, what we will have is the test plan. So depend with how many levels, how many versions, based on the complexity or the size of the project. Okay, so this can be the test planning activities involved. So when we said, if you check back your test plan, the table of content which I share with you for your assignment. So that actually what are the things which we need to plan. Okay, so if you see for the test planning activities, we try to identify and define the test levels involved. Okay, the test strategies which we want to apply, and also the test entry and the test exit criteria. Okay, for us to start with the testing, for us to end with the testing. So we need to identify the test entry criteria, test exit criteria. So actually there is another one in the between, which is the test continuation criteria. So that one I will discuss later. So the important one is this two. Okay. And other than that, we also need to manage the resource. So as what I have mentioned, we have different types of resources. So material, budget, and human resources. So how we are going to manage these resources for the entire testing which we will do. Okay, so we need to plan them accordingly. Then, other than that, to control, to integrate, and coordinate test activities. So, how the test execution will be conducted? Okay, how many numbers of test cases? How many testers we have? How long time we have? What are the technology we are going to use? Are we going to use manual testing, or are we having any automation testing tool? So how we are actually coordinate our test activities. Okay, then to describe the details of the test. So it means every single test specification need to be described, and then we also need to do the risk management. So if you see in your assignment, I ask you to identify two different types of risk, which is the product risk and also the project risk. And then we need to do the risk management. So based on this risk, how you plan to manage it in case if this risk happen. So this is actually part of the test planning activities. Okay, okay, hold on. Okay, so what are the consideration factors when we plan for the testing? Okay, so when we want to conduct the test planning before the actual date of the testing, we do the early planning, right? So what are the how to say consideration, or what are the factors um, we need to consider about? So the first one is the infrastructure, okay, which we are going to use for the test. Okay, so based on this infrastructure, we need to know that, okay, do we have this infrastructure? Are they available? For example, the testing tools. Okay, or don't we have the testing tool? And then the test harness. Let's assume if we are dealing with a newly developing system. So is it a complete system?